I have been criticised by certain individuals saying things like I'd tainted the purity of black music. I think that's correct. My answer to that is that the South African government uses similar arguments to defend apartheid. In other words, what these people are saying is absolute bullshit, and I will not even discuss the matter with them. That's racism. I think music belongs to everyone, regardless of your colour. And you know, if we think of music forms as being pure and holy and not allowed to be touched, then they die. My whole thing about pop music being dead, I keep being quoted on this. If pop music continues just to borrow from itself, from its own history, then of course it will die. It's at its most lively and its most effective when it's borrowing from other sources. When it borrows from folk music or classic or jazz or blues. That's when it becomes lively. As soon as you start making pop records that are just like pop records that were made 6 months ago or 6 years ago, it doesn't go anywhere, and that's my beef. When you write a song about an issue, more than often you're preaching to the converted. You're talking to or singing to people who believe what you say anyway. So there's not much of a challenge. But I've had letters from... I had a letter from the leader of the opposition, Neil Kinnock, on House of Commons notepaper saying how much he liked the song We Work the Black Seam. My manager, whose politics are completely opposite to mine and opposite to Neil Kinnock's, having heard the song, he said, look, if this song had come out during the miners' strike, I think they would have won. Now, he's very right-wing. For him to come out and say that means that the message is getting through, and through music, and through symbols, rather than hammering people on the head with a political idea. You know, it's more artistic. I've always thought of the audience as being an instrument to use musically. Everyone can sing, and when you get 12,000 people in a sort of community of happiness, and getting them to sing back is a great... It's very gratifying to me, and you know, it adds to the sound. I think it comes from being a part of a three-piece group, you know, where we were limited in how much sound we could make because there were just three of us, and using the audience to feed back was always something that I thought worked for us. I like ambiguity in songs. The song that can be seductive and yet sinister at the same time. I think it adds to the richness of the song. It's not just one idea, it's two joined into one. I think if I have to give you my top 5 gigs, India is at the top of my career. Not because we made any money or sold any records, but the emotion of playing to people who'd never seen rock and roll before was wonderful. It was like, it reconfirmed my belief in performing. Because often you suspect that you're just going through the motions of a ritual, and people know what to do. At the end of a song, they clap. And when you ask them to dance, they dance. And you think, well, are they really enjoying this, or are they just pretending to? But when you play to an audience who's never done it before, and you have to educate them into the way of it, it's very satisfying. By the end of that concert, we had a stage invasion. They were screaming. There were people throwing their clothes up in the air.
One could sort of say, well, your career peaked at a certain time when Police were selling like millions of albums, when a song would sell 500,000 copies in 1 week in England. You could then say it peaked again with Police, and then again when you were making films. You pursue so many areas and facets of the industry. Is it hard to sort of break off from, say, music and have to sort of go into filmmaking or into acting?
Not really. My father used to say that a change is as good as a rest, you know. I'm not very good at resting. I'm terrible at sort of sitting down and relaxing. I'm not that kind of person. I'd much prefer to do another job and feel refreshed from that change, that breath of fresh air. And it's nice to go off and make films, as hard as it is and as exhausting as it is. I always feel refreshed when I go back into the studio and want to write a song. You know? Otherwise, you know, as a rock star, if you like, you lead this very rarefied existence. You meet very few people. You meet your manager, your accountant, your band, the odd interviewer, journalist. That's it. And you just travel around the world doing that.
Right.
You rarely meet different people. And so when you make a film, you're forced into new relationships with actors, directors, technicians, cameramen.
You seem far more relaxed now and a lot happier. And quoting Trudy, she said that the moment you started with this band, that you in fact had become a different person.
I think it's been a very good year for me in every sense, both musically, socially, in my personal life.
Mm.
And that's obviously reflected in how relaxed I am. I mean, I think 7 years as a member of the police in that sort of meteoric rise that we had was very difficult. And I think we all became sort of casualties of that success and the pressure. God, the pressure. But it's a cliche, but it's a real one. You know, you do change.
Right.
And I was just glad to have a breath of fresh air after all of that. The measure of whether something has been useful or not in my experience is that if I feel I've gone through a project and learned something from it, or developed or evolved in some way, then I think it's been worth the time. And I spent a year in this project. I think I'm better equipped now than I was the year previous to do whatever I want to do next. So it's been a very useful year. And the next thing I do, I will look for that same ingredient, that same, will it challenge me? Will it make me evolve? Will I become a better songwriter, a better singer, you know, a better person maybe? And if the answer is yes, I will do it. But I won't just keep pressing the button that says, you know, do this and you'll be rewarded.
Well, I mean, people do have a want. Be rightly or wrongly, recording companies the same thing, and they'll simply say, well, is there going to be another Police album? For instance, at the moment, Mick Jagger has done a Rolling Stones album. It's almost certain, from Mick's point of view, that he'll never tour with the Stones. Again, with yourself, with Stuart and Andy, could you go back to just being a three-piece to do another album?
I don't know. I think the head of our record company said something very interesting about me the other day. He was addressing this issue of what will Sting do next. And he said, you know, it's like the 600-pound bear. Where does he sit?
Right.
Where he likes. And I'm the 600-pound bear, and I can do whatever I want.